Hi, and welcome back to the blog at blog.tapstore.com. This is Ben Wolf here to show you how to use Inkscape to create a great logo design for your website. So, best way for me to do that is going to be just take a well-known design, such as the YouTube logo, and try to duplicate it as best I can with Inkscape. Maybe you'll find something here that you really like and want to use for your own thing. So I'm going to grab this text tool and just start with the basic word structure. So I'm going to select that, make it a little bigger. This works like your standard word processing program. I'm also going to change the font style to Blue Highway Condensed, which is very similar to the actual font used by YouTube, but is not, in fact, the right one. But this will do. So I'm going to select a red, a little darker red down here, and a box. Basically everything you do with Inkscape will start with just a basic circle right at the bottom, or a basic shape right at the bottom. So I'm going to send that to the back using that hot link and just resize it as I'd like to. Make sure that it, basically we're just roughing it in right now. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's going on. Now, obviously, what we want to do with this box here is, it's not really a box at all. It's obviously a reference to television, so we're going to have to make it a little rounded. So just double click it, drag this ball here, and get it about as round as you think it should be. I think right there is fine. Now, another thing that you might miss if you don't look closely at the YouTube logo is that it isn't actually a perfect rectangle. There's actually a little bulge here and a little bulge here to give it some more depth and perspective. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit the path by nodes. Actually, first we are going to transform this object, which is our square, into a path. Now paths are nice because you can just grab them and pull them around. If you remember my using paths tutorial for GIMP, it works largely the same way in Inkscape or any other program for that matter. So I'm just going to make these a little rounded, a little skewed rather. Pull them down a little bit, just like this. And that gives us a basic shape. So let's see how that looks. That looks alright for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that layer and shrink it just a little. Actually let's change it to a brighter red. Most designs look best if they have a slight border with the background. I'll show you what I mean with that in a second. Now I'm going to show you a trick here. If you hold shift, you can shrink and contract from the center, which is very nice to use in many situations. It saves you a lot of time aligning objects. So there you go. I'm going to send that one layer back. And now we can really see the rough shape coming through. I don't really love that color, so let's go let's go to fill and stroke and change the stroke color, or change the fill color a little bit. Just play around until you get a color that you think is about right. That'll do for now. Once again, we're going to want to duplicate that object, but now we want to make it white. We're going to add a lighting effect coming in from the upper right hand corner. So grab your gradient tool there and just drag it like so. Now you can reposition these nodes as much or as little as you'd like to until you get something that you're really comfortable with. I'm going to leave it right about there. Now we're going to want to do the same thing, but for a dark low light here on the bottom of the tube part of the YouTube. So one trick that you'll learn if you go through the tutorial for this is to, if you click on things, you just get the top layer. But if you hold Alt and click, you cycle through all the layers. So top, middle, bottom. So that's a good trick. It's really important so that you can see what you're doing but still make it manageable. So I'm going to select the middle layer, duplicate it again, change it to, I'll go with a black for this one, and pull this gradient just like you did for the white. Now for me, both of those gradients are a little thick. So I'm just going to go down here to your opacity with the black layer selected and just soften it up as much as I'd like. Maybe I will even, let's see, let's put it back up to 80. I'll show you this too. In here, the fill and stroke box, you can also add a blur effect to your gradient, which is nice, as you can see. Tends to give things more depth, but a lot of looks nowadays in Web 2.0 are very crisp, so you don't want to blur those lines at all. But for this one, I think it's appropriate, so we'll leave it like that. I'm actually going to put a little blur on the white layer also while we're at it. All right. So we're just about there. Obviously, this YouTube is not quite right, as the black needs to be black here and white here. So we're going to just duplicate the whole layer of text. And then, just for speed, I will delete the U part of that tube. So now I have tube on its own. Gotta get that aligned properly. You can obviously use your alignment tool under Object, Align, and Distribute if you'd like. I urge you to play around with that. That's a lifesaver, but I don't really need it right now, so I'm sure I will later. Get rid of that tube under there, and now you have your items to move around as you'd like. Another thing we have going on with this picture is the font is not quite perfect. So maybe this is actually a good thing you can do with any font, is to switch it around to give it a little spice. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit these nodes. Oops, path, object path. First trick, simplify the path. And then we can just pull these nodes around as much as we'd like. I just finished up customizing this tube, notably making the UBE a little more square and definitely squaring off this top of the B. I know it's not perfect, but it's close enough. You see where I'm going. And you can take as much or as little time editing those nodes as you'd like. It's really easy. Maybe in the future I'll do a tutorial just on editing nodes, but I'm sure you can find one here if you're interested anyways. There's one last step to really making this pop, and that is a subtle gradient. So once again, same deal, going to duplicate the U. This time make it maybe a light gray. Grab it and just throw down a bit of a gradient for you. That looks good. And behind tube, we'd actually like a little blur effect. So duplicate that. Make it dark, maybe charcoal. And put it just behind the tube. It's fine. Throw a blur on it, and there you have it. In my estimation, pretty good looking YouTube.